Hey, Tusks up, Utah Mammoth fans, and welcome into another Utah Mammoth Daily. So, I don't know if you can tell from my voice, but I am a little under the weather here, so I'm going to power through this one, and we'll get through this one together. First, to start things off, ESPN recently released an article grading their preseason predictions and how confident they remain in their preseason predictions. In this particular instance, it was written by Greg Wyshynski. I do like his work overall. I think he does a really solid job, and he hasn't fallen into the trap that a lot of ESPN's writers have fallen into, which is just gotcha stuff or hot takes that nobody wants, stuff like that. So I think he does a pretty good job overall with his work. And his prediction confidence meter is sitting at a 7, which is pretty good considering the skid the team's on. But I also want to mention that lines up perfectly with the playoff prediction percentage that ESPN currently has, which is hovering around the 67 to 75% range, depending on the night. So while he's not really going out on a limb here and being completely confident, like I am, that Utah will make the playoffs, he is still relatively confident. C's get degrees, as the saying goes, and Utah Mammoth could get that degree this year. They do need to snap out of this funk. Hopefully this mini homestand will do some good stuff for them, but obviously it's not going to be easy against Vegas and the Rangers. Vegas twice. Really weird. All right, so that's the preseason prediction picks that have been revisited. I am sure other websites will revisit theirs here soon, but ESPN's, that's the one that piqued my interest because they were among the first to say that Utah was going to make the playoffs this season. Due to other teams regressing, like Minnesota and St. Louis and Nashville not becoming what they thought they would become, which has all been true so far, but also the rise of Utah, which it's a roller coaster. And that's what young teams do. They're still figuring out how to stay consistent and how to stay locked in when things just don't go your way, which has happened a lot here recently. It'll be very interesting to see how the captain trio of Keller, Krause, and Sergachev can rally the troops to get them back as close as possible to when they were world beaters during that win streak. Speaking of the position that needs to step up its game, it is the goalies. They are not solely to blame. I'm really tired of that lazy take. They are not solely to blame. If you watch the games and you look at the chances that are being created by opposing teams, Utah does tend to give up a lot of grade A chances. And no goalie, I don't care if it's Bobrovsky or if it's Hellebuck, they're not making every stop when they are facing the chances that Vanacek and Vejmelka have been facing. Am I saying that those two guys are on that level? Absolutely not. I'm not that dumb. But it's just to kind of help paint the picture of saying it's the goalie's fault is both easy to say but also lazy because you're just not digging deeper. And to dig deeper, you look at what's going on with not just the defensemen. I mean, obviously, in that game against the Sharks, Sergachev and Cole were having a rough night. And the forwards tend to overcommit on the offensive side of things, which then leads to these grade A chances that Vejmelka and Vanacek are facing. So it's just a combination of the forwards just pushing too hard to break out of a slump and the defensemen not being able to have an off night. Like, they have to be on every night. So that's really what I've been seeing. Maybe I'm just stupid. Maybe I'm not seeing the whole picture. I'm not seeing the forest for the trees. But that's how I see it when it comes to these two goalkeepers. Do I think a change needs to happen? Not yet. But if things continue the way they are going, then yes, a change needs to happen. Whether that's calling up somebody from the AHL or making a deal, something needs to happen. And that's pretty obvious as well. But I continue to see this narrative that it's all the goalie's fault. It's not. It's not. Yeah, they're paid to make saves, and Vanacek, to his credit, after giving up those 2 goals that were grade A chances, by the way, he didn't allow in a shot until overtime. So to his credit, and to Utah Mammoth's credit too, the defense did a really good job of adjusting to what San Jose wanted to do, which was basically capitalize on turnovers. But anyway, this is the day after the Vegas game. You don't care about the Sharks anymore. But that's just how I see it. Now let's transition over to the trade market. The Athletic has released their too early trade market for the NHL, and the top 3 names on the list are the ones that I've talked about as well, which is Rasmus Andersson, Steven Stamkos, and Alex Tuch, or however you want to pronounce his name. I'm terrible at names. You all know this by now. But for me, of those guys, it's got to be Rasmus Andersson for the Mammoth. When you look through this list, you also see that there's no goalies available. So the grass isn't always greener on the other side, Mammoth fans. And goalie is a premium position, so you're going to have to give up a premium. And Bill Armstrong has shown that he's not willing to give up premium players from his talent pool. He's given up draft picks for sure, but he's not given up the big names of Tijiginla or Daniil Boot, Dmitry Simashev, any of those guys. He hasn't given any of them up in any of these deals, and he's never really even brought them up in those deals. So when we look at the trade market, it is filled with really good players that would benefit the Mammoth immensely. I've also talked about Ryan O'Reilly on this list. I'd love to see him in a Mammoth jersey, but the Predators are treating Ryan O'Reilly for the moment as if he did have a full no-trade clause on his contract, because he has said repeatedly he does not want to leave Nashville. So he is doing everything he can to be right by the organization, and that's just the kind of classy player that he is. Of the top 10, I've talked about pretty much all of them except for Justin Falk, Brandon Carlo, and Blake Coleman. Blake Coleman would be a nice get for Utah. He would add a defensive forward to play alongside the offensive guys of Dylan Gunther, JJ Peterka, even Clayton Keller, if they want to do that. He would be able to be that anchor to allow those guys to push a little bit more hard. But overall, I think Yegor Chinakhov works very well with this team. He's had a trade request that has gone unfulfilled since the offseason, early in the offseason. So we'll see what happens there. But Rasmus Andersson, Steven Stamkos, Alex Tuch, those guys are top among what I would want. And then Braden Shen would be amazing, but I don't see St. Louis trading him. I know they did the healthy scratch, but that was just to send a message to the team rather than sending a message to Shen saying, hey, we're going to sell. We'll have to see, though, because St. Louis is doing the same thing they did last year, which is stink it up in the first half and then somehow turn it on in the second half. That also has to do with their goalie, Jordan Binnington, who's one of the streakiest goalies I've ever seen. But that's kind of where we're sitting with all of them. And lastly here, I do want to talk about Andre Tourigny. Outside of the fan base, Andre Tourigny is well respected. He is well respected by every reporter that I've seen write about him, everything I've heard on podcasts and YouTube videos. He's well respected outside of everywhere but the toxic fan base of the Mammoth. And I'm not saying the Mammoth is a toxic fan base. By no means am I saying that, but there is always a toxic element in every fan base. And during this slide, that toxic element has been shouting into the void, and it's really annoying. But Andre Tourigny, we'll see if he's the right man for the job. So far, he's done incremental improvements. And before that 7-game winning streak, we would have wanted to continue to see incremental improvements for this roster. We've seen the team at its best. We've also seen the team at its worst. So we'll see. Andre Tourigny will have to do something here. He has been trying to shuffle the lines a little bit. I've read online and I've listened to, former players that say that can work, but if you continue to do it, you're not doing anybody any favors because they are constantly having to learn on the fly the tendencies of their line mates, and that doesn't do anybody any good. So while these shuffles have had limited success, I would say, they're obviously not winning, so it's not fixed anything. It has sparked more energy from Logan Cooley. It has sparked goals from JJ Peterka. And Dylan Gunther has kind of gotten the message a little bit when he was dropped from Power Play 1 that he needs to do more than just camp out on the spot, and he has been. So I don't think Andre Tourigny is the problem. Again, that is another quick take that you can make about a team that's struggling. Oh, it's the goalies, or oh, it's the coach. Because you can always point to simple statistics that can paint the picture for you, but it doesn't paint the full picture. And so you can say, oh, they're on a skid, the changes aren't working, so it's the coach's fault. The goalies are allowing 4 or 5 goals a game. Well, the offense is only scoring 2. So is it really the goalie's fault? If they're only allowing 2 goals a game, that's really good, in my opinion. So if they can continue to do that, the offense picks back up, Utah is again flying high. So there's a lot going on. We are going through it. We are in the blender, but it's a long season. We're eating our vegetables. But the dessert is going to be coming here. I promise that. So thank you all for watching. Hit that subscribe button. I hope my sick voice didn't bore you too much. And I'll see you tomorrow for another one. Tusks up.